Hi there, folks. Today I've got a really cool guest. I'm really excited for this conversation today. Ray Grijalba. First of
Yes,
all, Ray, how are you? Welcome to the
I'm
show. Thanks
doing
for coming
great.
on.
Yeah, this is my first Ireland YouTube video. This is awesome.
Hopefully, won't be the last. But
Yes.
so Ray's got well, quite a few things going on. He has a channel called YouTube channel called Joy of the Faith, and I actually think I checked it up before. I think it was it's in 2 weeks. It'll be your fourth anniversary, 4 years,
Yeah,
because isn't it the Feast of the Sacred Heart? Isn't that right? That was whenever you started it.
it
So,
is.
I'm sure you've had a really interesting journey just in terms of like seeing all sorts of other Christian and Catholic and things channels coming to the
Definitely.
fore during that period. But there's a remarkably exciting project that Ray's working on at the moment, and that's probably going to be the crux of what we talk about today. Um, Ray's making a movie with like full blown Hollywood movie, Oscar winning director, producers, and it's high level stuff relating to miracles, specifically the Eucharistic miracles, looking at three miracles in particular. So it's fascinating, and it kind of touches on things which, if you're not familiar with these stories, it's remarkable and mind blowing. And it'll just be really interesting to hear Ray discuss those three miracle stories in particular today. But first of all, I suppose first thing that we should discuss, just to kind of set the scene a bit, Ray, because there will be certain people on watching this discussion today who won't be from a Catholic background. Additionally, I saw a stat recently where I think 70% of Catholics polled didn't actually believe that Christ was present in the Holy Eucharist. So I suppose, first of all, would you be able to explain, just for the listener here, what is transubstantiation, and what is it that Catholics believe, I suppose, happen at Holy Communion?
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's probably one of the craziest teachings in Christianity. I don't know if there's any other that's more crazy than it. And that the bread at Mass becomes the flesh of Jesus. Literally, transubstantiation is that what looks and tastes and is bread, like molecularly, like under the microscope it would still appear to be bread, is transformed into the body of Christ. So how that happens requires like metaphysics, but there's basically like accidents and substance. So um, I guess the best way of explaining it is um, well, I guess first of all, why do we believe this? So at the Last Supper, Jesus said, "This is my body," right? So he was saying that bread that he was holding was his body. And one of the things we just recorded this past weekend was that there was this Greek scholar who was an atheist, and this deacon that was with him, Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, uh, said, "You're a Greek scholar, but you're an atheist. Do you have a Bible on you?" And he said, "Yeah." So he pulled out the Bible and said, "Can you tell me what this means?" Which was the Last Supper. This is my body. And like just from a grammatical standpoint, he was saying what he was holding was his body. So he wasn't saying it was a symbol of his body. He wasn't saying it was a metaphor or anything like that. That it was literally his body from just like the grammar standpoint. Then we look at John 6, which is the bread of life discourse. Jesus says, "Unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink His blood, you have no life in you." And he says before that, "The bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh." So all the Jews, they were like super shocked, and they said, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" And then they basically leave. And Jesus turns to the 12 and says, "Do you also wish to leave?" But what they all said, which was really interesting, was, "This is a hard saying. Who can accept it?" Because eating flesh and drinking blood, so drinking blood for Jews was like forbidden in Leviticus. So they, at that moment, took Jesus literally. And because they took Jesus literally, they left. It's the only time in the whole Bible that they left Jesus. And so we see just from those two scriptural references the actual meeting that Jesus had, and the churches believed it for 2,000 years. There was no one that doubted this until like 900, and then that person recanted and came back to the faith. And then we know 1500 Martin Luther denied that Jesus was really present in the Eucharist. And so we're making this movie to talk about the Eucharist and use Eucharistic miracles as a vessel for that. I'll get into what Eucharistic miracles are in a second, but I'm hopefully going to be meeting very soon with a PhD in physics. This guy is brilliant, and he's going to talk about transubstantiation from a physics perspective and how he, as a Nobel Prize winning physicist, can still believe in transubstantiation, but be one of the top tier scientists of our generation. So it's really amazing because just a couple of weeks ago, Richard Dawkins tweeted that Catholics are crazy for believing that bread can become flesh. And it really is a great mystery, right? We know that sacrament comes from the Greek meaning mystery, and it's definitely a mystery. How can this happen? This is a hard thing. Who could accept it? We in our age today still ask that question because you cannot truly understand it.
Well, it requires faith, I suppose. Just on Richard Dawkins, I think a couple of weeks ago, he also said that kids with Down syndrome should be aborted because it would increase happiness in the world. So some hypocrisy there if he's calling other people crazy. I think that's the craziest thing I've heard in 2021. For anyone that's known a kid with Down syndrome, they are the joys of the world, if any one group of people are like. So there we are.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, true story. But anyway, so what was I going to say? It requires faith, right? So this is something that's almost a bittersweet thing because I heard you mention in your chat with the guys, great channel on YouTube, the Catholic Talk Show. You mentioned, I think, that in the last 50 to 100 years, there probably have been more Eucharistic miracles than like ever before. And there's kind of two different ways you can look at that. One, it's like, oh, this is wonderful because Christ is like revealing himself to us in a way that's like, it's just there for all to see type thing. But by the same token, or the other side of the coin, you can look at it and say, faith is so weak now that we need scientific proof. He needs to reveal himself to us in this kind of way that's like unequivocal for us to believe it, so that's interesting anyway. But yeah, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
So well, first of all, how did you get to the stage where you were going to make a movie about this? Because were you doing different videos on YouTube before, and like how did that just relationship with the different people you've started this journey with come about?
Yeah, so real quick comment on what you said before. It is interesting to think about that. I think we're at a very interesting time for like human history in that we can either really choose to believe in ourselves only, or we can believe in God and he can help us change the world. Because I mean, how can anyone look at the world and be like, man, we are going in a really good direction? I think the world is going in a very odd direction right now.
Yeah.
On many fronts, but I think that, like, why does God give us miracles? He doesn't give us miracles so that we'll believe, but he gives miracles because he is generous. And I think that he really wants us today in this like extremely technologically advanced age to see that there's something greater, and that's him, that he is the greatest scientist. and he can show us things that really like shock us. And because at the end of the day, like, he wants our salvation, but it's our choice. I was interviewing a doctor the other day, and he said that the doctor that looked at the miracle, that analyzed it himself, when he found out it was a Eucharistic miracle, he was like, no, it can't be. It just can't be. And that's what I really hope. I hope that once this movie's out, like, people will still not be like, no, it just can't be, because at some point you have to have faith in something, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have faith in these scientists that they did their stuff properly. You have to have faith, like every single thing that anyone ever tells you, you have some sort of faith to believe it.
Yeah.
Even the greatest analysis, there's some area that you have to trust someone. And
just to jump in, you're totally right, because this is something that we were discussing just before we started recording, and I said that, like, I just told Ray that I first came across his movie literally the day after my mum just coincidentally showed me old footage, unrelated, but like early 2000s footage on the Eucharistic miracle at Buenos Aires. And, you know, it wasn't anything that like the YouTube algorithm could have picked up or anything, because they were separate devices and like in no way related. So like even there was like sort of coincidences when they happen time and time again, you know, you can tell that there's more going on type thing. But just in terms of what you're saying about needing faith, like you're right. You know, I probably went, this is the thing that I want to get this sort of discussion and flowing and happening more often. This is exactly, I imagine, why you're doing this movie. It's like, it's to kind of wake up dormant Catholics as much as it is to kind of evangelize other people. Because if I look at Ireland, for example, we were once the land of saints and scholars. Now, there was a great interview with a pretty famous local football manager here in Ireland, Mickey Hart. His son Matty Hart was on with Matt Fradd last week, and he was discussing the state of Catholicism in Ireland. And he said basically, if you send your kids to a Catholic school, primary school here for 7 years, and then secondary school for another 7 years, you've like a 99% chance of that kid coming out not practicing Catholicism, not understanding Catholicism, and not practicing it. So it's a really strange state of affairs that we're in at the moment, where most people in Ireland are Catholic, baptized, but it's just pure dormancy. Like you're just dormant, not fully understanding the sacraments. Certainly, like if I even think to myself, the amount of times over 20 plus years I went to receive Holy Communion and not realizing that I was receiving Christ, not understanding that idea of transubstantiation. So I think that this movie, what you're doing, will just kind of snap people into realizing that this is the beauty and the mystery of what it is that we believe. And then it'll like warmly encourage people from other denominations to potentially consider embracing Catholicism. But sorry for cutting you off there.
No, I agree. It's totally what we're hoping for. And it's the reason we're making it a movie and not a documentary, because there are so many Catholic documentaries out there and Christian documentaries of all sorts, right?
Yeah.
And they're good to watch, but you're like sitting there and it's like kind of boring, you know? A lot of them are like more educational based, but who we're targeting are like, we're targeting everyone basically. And the only way you get everyone is like you make it a movie, you make it appealing, you have a plot. And that's where it's going to be really interesting. But I'll get to that in a second. So how did I start doing all this? A year ago on the Feast of Corpus Christi, I released a like 3-minute trailer on Eucharistic miracles, 3 of the ones that I made on my later video. And I looked into the science behind it, because I'm an engineer by trade. I studied materials engineering, which is like the study of metals and like microscopic configurations of everything, you know, but we focused mainly on metals. We did some glasses and polymers and stuff and ceramics, but we mainly focused on metal. So I did like a lot of scanning electron microscopy and all of this stuff. So I always had that like science mind. And when I heard of Lanciano when I was growing up, I was like, man, that's amazing. And I remember doing a Bible study on it my senior year of college, or maybe it was after I graduated college. I don't know what it was, but I started looking into it and I was like, this is amazing. But I'm not a medical doctor, so I didn't like fully understand it all. So I started to try, and God just provided, because in between the trailer video and the initial one that I released, it's about 9 minutes, I met this cardiologist, Dr. Franco Serafini, who's out in Italy. He wrote a book on 5 Eucharistic miracles from the medical perspective. And it's an amazing book. And he was basically my mentor through this. And he would literally like proofread my transcripts for the video and be like, no, that's not true, or this is actually more accurate, and stuff like that. So it was really great to have a like the fact checker, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And
only an actual fact checker that actually is real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not like the Snopes guys, you know,
Yeah.
that are like biased fact checkers.
Yeah.
And so it was really awesome to get his guidance, and because it was really hard, like reading in Spanish and Italian, because those were like the languages of where the miracles were.
Right.
And so I would literally like read something. Like I could understand Spanish decently, but a lot of it was like technical, so like that was harder. So I would like type it into Google Translate, you know, and then read it, and then be like, okay, what does this word mean, you know?
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And eventually, I made this video. I went on Taylor Marshall, and Angelo, the director, reached out to me and said, Ray, we should do a movie on Eucharistic miracles. And I was like, okay, I don't know if people would want that, but it's worth a shot. And then people really wanted it. So we've been super blessed, and like those that have received it, and people are really, really looking forward to it. But for those that may not know, what are Eucharistic miracles? Well, Eucharistic miracles, at least the ones we're talking about in this movie, there are several different types, but these are where the bread actually manifests the reality of what's happening and turns into flesh. So that may sound crazy, bread turning into flesh, but that has happened throughout the centuries. And we were a month ago today, we were in New York getting ready to fly to Italy, Mexico, and Poland. And we got to see all of these Eucharistic miracles and speak with the doctors that analyzed it, and were on the panel, like doing the analysis into it. Two of the priests that witnessed it themselves when they occurred. And it was just amazing to see that, and really catalog something that's really important. Because basically what it all comes down to is either these miracles are real and Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist and God exists, or they're lying, right? And even if they're lying, that doesn't mean that Jesus isn't truly present in the Eucharist. Because basically, I think at the end of the day, what people need to realize is we don't believe in Jesus in the Eucharist because of these Eucharistic miracles. We don't believe in the Eucharist because of science. We believe in the Eucharist because Jesus said it. And Jesus is the most credible person. So we should take him at his word, because he literally is the Word, the Word made flesh. And so it's really cool to have been on that journey and cataloged all these and asked them the tough questions, because basically, as much as like I believe in them, because of like all the analysis that I've read and all the evidence that's been placed before me, I was going into this, and I'm still going into this, like with the skeptic mindset, because I'm not going to believe something just because like someone says it. I want it to be true because I don't want to share a lie, because eventually I'll be judged for that. And so throughout all of this, if there were like things I didn't understand, I asked what they meant by those. So that 100 years from now, 20 years from now, people can see what these men that did this analysis, and women that did this analysis, they can hear what they said, and it's actually documented for the world to see. And that's never been done before. So I am super grateful to be a part of this.
The other, I suppose, thing with that is, if there's one thing that you missed, if there was one thing that you did just take someone at their word, say, and you didn't do your thorough due diligence, eventually someone who was a skeptic, if they were able to hang their hat on one flaw or weakness in the movie, the credibility of everything else would kind of become vulnerable, in terms of like people would just dismiss it. So it's the absolute right approach that you're taking there.
Yeah.
So would you like to just take us through, I suppose, briefly, the three, or more in depth, up to you, the three main miracles that you're touching on in the movie?
So I'll go through two of them, because the third one is like a surprise. So
Perfect.
I'll tell you guys what the surprise. Well, I won't tell you what it is, but we were going to do Buenos Aires, Argentina, but then we were blessed to get the contact for the doctor in Poland for the newest approved Eucharistic miracle, like in the world.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so this occurred in 2013 in Poland. So like, how long ago was 2013? Super recent. So it's amazing. So that was phenomenal. And what will be shared in the movie on that is going to be it's going to be crazy. So I think people are really, really going to like that. So yeah.
Do you know what? I'm not even going to research that Polish one. I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait in the movie.
Good,
So,
good.
so you can take us through, what are the other two, Lanciano and Tixla in Mexico? So Italy and Mexico then, yeah?
Yep. So Lanciano or Lanciano is how the Italians pronounce it. Was the is the most well known. I know. I was like Angelo is Italian, our director, so
Yeah.
he definitely beat us into that. But I'd never heard that before. I was in Lanciano, and they were like, "It's Lanciano," and I was like, "But Lanciano sounds kind of cooler," you know. So yeah, basically what happened here is that in the 8th century there was a Brazilian monk that was saying mass and was like doubting the true presence. And at the words of consecration, the bread turned into flesh and the wine turned into blood, and it basically affirmed the reality of what's happening. Because it's basically like this is at the mass, bread becomes the body of Christ. We believe it because Jesus said it, right? And all the Christians of the first 2 millennia believed it because Jesus said it. They didn't need science, and they were called cannibals and all this stuff, but they believed it, and that has changed the world. So, but I guess in this moment, like God gave this grace for this monk and thousands of Christians throughout history to see it, and it was amazing to go there. This was the first medically analyzed Eucharistic miracle because there had been these miracles throughout the centuries, but no one had ever gone in. And I guess in 1970, this Dr. Adaro Lanoli asked to analyze it, and the bishop gave him permission, so he did.
So sorry to just jump in, because again, just for clarity, I suppose, for someone that's not heard this for the first time. So the Eucharist literally became the flesh and blood in the 700s, sometime in 700s AD, and it's been sitting there for 1300 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So they've just preserved that in Lanciano.
It's just in a monstrance.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that's a very important thing to note, is that it hasn't decayed. You would think it would decay over 1300 years.
Yeah.
This is where like the skeptics will be like, oh, well, how do we know it wasn't just like, it's not just plastic, or the doctor was just given a sample to test and things like that. But I think what this one, and those are great questions, right? Mm-hmm. So like, how can we fully know? What I would love to do is to take a sample again and like do a modern day analysis. So that would be really awesome. And who knows, maybe after this movie, they'll be like, yeah, go ahead and do it, and we'll do like Eucharistic miracles, like analysis or something, because people are like, okay, you could do like a carbon dating on it and then actually find out if it's 1300 years old. But there's all these things like, I guess like that would be the best test that you could kind of do. But even like you even hear some people saying that that's not definitive, right? Carbon dating is sometimes off or whatever. But yeah, so we believe that, and the only way to 100% know is to do that. But really, the only way, because then this is where like I think it's very important to not just be like trying to poke holes in something. Even though that's important to do, is to like ask questions. But if you're just like going to continually doubt, what is actually your like goal? Like, what are you shooting for? Are you just trying to like discredit something because you don't like where it's pointing? And if it is, then be consistent and do that to other things, not just this one area. So the only way to fully know if this is really Jesus is to take all of the Eucharistic miracles and take a sample and get profiles from them. And if the profile matches, then it's really Jesus, and would that change the world or what? I mean, that would be unbelievable. I don't think God would allow that, because that would almost like take away faith in some ways. But that would be really incredible. It's something we've looked into. It'd be very expensive, but I'm totally up for it if God allows it. Because can you imagine if we get one from the 1300s, one from 2006, and then one from 2013, and we just get like a very, very small sample and do this sort of analysis, and it's like, yes, that is the same person. Then the question is, how in the world can that be the same person? But even if we did that, I guarantee there'd be skeptics out there that would say, well, how do we know that was actually that? Like, couldn't they have just taken like 3 samples from the same person? You know, like there's always like there's always a skeptic out there that could be like, I'm not satisfied, you know, or like I just don't believe that, you know. It's really
it's that it comes to that idea though, where it's, I can't remember who said it, but it was something like, it's not up to me to convince. It's up to me to kind of just give you the information, and then it's in your hands. You know what I mean?
exactly.
But so what in terms of Lanciano then? Have there been any tests or?
Yeah. So what they did is we actually, it's cool. They actually still have the slides that contained the like pieces of Jesus, you know, or that like we believe is Jesus. Uh, so I was kind of be like, I wanted to ask, can we take those slides so we can look at them under the microscope, like modern day, you know? But what they did is they looked at them and they were able to find that it was heart tissue, which was a big deal, because we Catholics have this phrase, Eucharistic heart of Jesus, and it's more like a pious, like thought, you know, that like when we receive Jesus, it's like his Eucharistic heart. We say it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity, you know, but it's amazing that like in these miracles he showed us that it was his heart. So that was a huge discovery, because like if it was his arm or his leg, like it wouldn't be as impressive as the heart. And I think it's amazing that he shows us that. But by far the most incredible finding was that when they did the testing, they found it was AB blood, which was which was the first time that ever found AB blood, and associated that to him. That's the rarest blood type. They weren't able to find if it was positive or negative, but it was AB blood. And there were ratios of proteins that were the same as normal fresh blood. So I asked the doctor, I said, so you're saying that this 1,300-year-old tissue had fresh blood on it? And he was like, yes. And that's just, I mean, I don't know, that's just crazy. It's even like hard for me to believe. And you could probably like try to poke holes through that or whatever, or you know, but it was just really interesting to hear that. I mean, even when you go to Lanciano and you see it, it's just an amazing sight. You know, it's amazing. So that was the first medically analyzed Eucharistic miracle. It was, you know, a piece of the myocardium, and they found different nerves within it as well, like a vagus nerve and different. It was just there's so much in it that I still don't fully understand. I haven't like exhausted it all,
Yeah.
but definitely, I would definitely love to kind of do like a little synopsis of each one, like on like a 20-30 minute, you know, with the doctors, which so I wasn't able to do that like due to the time and whatnot, but definitely hope to. That would be really amazing. So um, I want to jump to the next miracle, which is my favorite miracle.
Okay.
It's in Ixtla, Mexico. This happened in 2006, so pretty recent. There was a nun that was giving out communion, and she saw that a red liquid was coming from the host, and she thought it was blood, of course. It was amazing. Or it's amazing because she brought it to the priest, and the priest held it up for the parish that was there during mass, and everyone was like, wow. And I got to speak with one of the priests that was there when that actually happened, like the moment it was happening. And that was a really humbling experience to be there with a man that was there when it happened. So what they did is it sat there for like 3 years, and then they brought it in for analysis, and the bishop specifically asked for them to prove that it was fake, because he wanted there to be like no doubt that this was real if it was real. But if it was fake, he wanted it just be done with, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's important to note that there are Eucharistic miracles or like alleged miracles that aren't really miracles. It's like a bread mold, you know. And Dr. Serafini in Italy has looked into 2 miracles, alleged miracles himself, and they were both bread mold, you know. So they, you know, um, didn't venerate that, you know, anymore, and you know, had the host dissolve and whatnot. So, you know, out of respect for Jesus and stuff like that, because we don't want to adore something that is that we think is a miracle, but it's not actually a miracle.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the body of Christ, of course, but we're not going to put like the body of Christ with bread mold on display to mislead people to think that that's actually a Eucharistic miracle. You know, so I think that's a great wisdom of the church. But in this case, in Tixla, they looked at it and they brought it to this doctor, Eduardo Sanchez Lazo, who we were able to interview. We were at his house and spent many hours with him. It was amazing. He studies legal medicine, so they're basically like forensics, you know. And so he thought it was just a homicide when he was given this small sample, and it was heart tissue with AB blood on it. They found that this one was AB negative blood, but when he went to do DNA testing, the DNA, like they were able to identify that it was human, but it was so degraded they couldn't find a profile for it, so they couldn't match it to a person that was living or dead, you know. So he was shocked because he said he did DNA testing 5 days a week for decades and never had this happen. And so that was really pretty amazing to hear. And the most amazing thing that he discovered from that miracle was that the blood came from the inside of the host. So, and it was really amazing to go to this miracle. And this is where we hope to like represent this with CGI. Was like, so here's the host right here, right? And there was a spot like right here, but when you flipped it over, there was no spot there. A host is like super thin, right? Mm-hmm. So if you put any liquid on something that's really thin, gravity is going to suck it down, right? But for some reason that was not the case in Tixla. It basically defied those laws, and when he took it and put it on the side, he could see the flow of the blood from the inside to the outside, and he was pretty shocked by that. And he actually wrote it up. So that's something that we hope to demonstrate as well, because that rules out the possibility of someone just placing blood on top of it, you know, or having blood. What was that?
No, I'm with you.
Yeah. Or someone like having blood and just like touching it to, you know, because what happens like when liquid touches a piece of bread, it starts to disintegrate. Mm-hmm. But even when we were there, it was totally intact. It was just unbelievable. And he actually said that, well, I'll say that for the movie. So there's so many things that he said, and I was like, oh my goodness, it was just awesome. And I was really grateful to be there in Mexico and see the miracle. And it was like I was like this far away from the miracle, you know, like it was awesome. So that was just amazing. So hopefully in the movie, everyone that's watching will be like, feel like they are there with us. And it was just awesome. So I really love that miracle. And I love that that was the miracle I was actually telling you about before, where the doctor analyzed it. And when he was told what it was, he was like, no, it can't be. Like, it just can't be. Because they found a bunch of things. Like they found all these different white blood cells. They found a white blood cell that was eating a fat. They also, when they took like the microscopic slides, right? So there's a dye that they use to color the tissue so that they can tell what it is. And vegetable cells do not absorb this dye. But on the slide, you could see something that wasn't pink next to something that was pink. And that was the vegetable cells, the bread, in the same image as the flesh. So they were like interpenetrated, which was like, how is that even possible? On the more technical side, people say, well, maybe you just put it in like formaldehyde to preserve it, but this formaldehyde would destroy the bread. And so there's just like so much stuff behind this. It's the only miracle where the bread and the flesh are still present together. All the other miracles that I've seen, the bread has decayed or the bread was totally transformed. But this one, like the bread and the flesh are present. Like you can see the host still, and there's like a black, you know, coloring on it, you know, which is the heart tissue, which was red, but over time it's darkened due to age, you know. So it is just, it is amazing. And that one we might actually be able to get a sample of. So that would be really awesome. But we'll see what God wills. he's opened so many doors. We got to meet Carlo Acudis's mom while we were over there, and that was really great. So yeah, there's just so much stuff. But I know you wanted to wrap it up. So do you have any questions or comments for
No, no,
me?
no. Yeah, I was happy. I'm happy to let you chat. Yeah, well, I suppose just what's the status of the movie at the moment, in terms of, well, yeah, how are you getting along, and sort of when are you hoping to release it?
Yeah, we're hoping to have it out on December 12th, which is the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, because we always say Jesus or Mary brings us to Jesus, and like the greatest way to be brought to Jesus is in the Eucharist. So that's our goal. It's going to be very challenging to meet that goal, because that's like 6 months from now, and we have a bunch of editing and CGI to do. So it all depends on people's schedules, because we don't have millions of dollars to make this movie. So if you want to support us, you can go to eucharisticmiraclesmovie.com and help get that out sooner. But basically, like, God is the greatest planner. So if if all of these like people that work for Lucasfilms and Disney like are booked for movies, and that's like their main source of income, we won't be able to get in until that's done. So we'll kind of see there. But there's so much. We're trying to shoot our live action scenes like John 6 and the Road to Emmaus, different like actual scenes where they're being acted out. It's going to be super awesome. We're hoping to do that in the next couple of weeks, but it all depends on locations and stuff. It's been a real intense thing, because the only way that we're able to do this like without having millions of dollars is by literally me and the director doing like almost everything, you know, from like the planning perspective and all of that. Which like that's not what I do. This is not my full-time job, and so it's been really intense. So all the prayers of everyone has like gotten us through, and it's been awesome. So we're seeing the film, like seeing the quality of film of which is being taken is like, oh my gosh, that's like me, because I'm like the main actor in the movie, and it's like, holy cow. Like it looks like a movie. I keep saying it looks like a movie, and it is a movie. So it's going to be on all the theaters, and we'll have it streaming online and all that. So it's going to be awesome. So we're shooting for December, but we'll see what God provides. And yeah, so
Unbelievable.
great.
I'll just ask you just one last little question, I suppose, just because, yes, you're closing in on 4 years now with, again, the Joy of the Faith, your channel on YouTube. What are your thoughts? Are you like real uplifted and buoyant just to see the kind of online revolution there's been the last couple of years, just in terms of like the Catholic community and spreading the word and stuff online? What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's been amazing, because there was a point a couple of years ago where I was like, man, I've seen like every video on YouTube that's Catholic.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be more content. And then it blew up, and like now there's like so much content you can't even watch it all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's been very helpful for like even Catholic Answers Live. Like they were not on YouTube 5 years ago, and now every single day they're on there. So you can watch like 2 hours of them every single day. Which is really great. But there's so much out there, and I love that. I'm super grateful to have been a part of it. And like we just hit 70,000 subscribers the other day, so that was really exciting. It's almost I think it's been like super humbling, because like I realize how little of a role I play, and how the Holy Spirit is really guiding it, and like it's almost like, how Paul says like it's no longer I but Christ living through me. It's really been that, because I remember in my early YouTubing days, I would work so hard for these videos, and like I would hope that they would get like thousands of views, and they would get like 150 views or something like that,
Yeah.
and like it's like just patience and diligence, and because there was a time before like the channel really took off that I was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. This is like a big time consumer with like Anne Marie and the family, and but I'm glad I didn't, because all of this wouldn't be happening. So and I'm not saying that everyone should like keep persevering, because like not everyone has to have a YouTube channel, but it's been really great for me. And I think what it does is like no matter how big your audience, it's like helping you think with the lens of how can I help change the world,
Big time.
And it really changes like your perspective, because you go from just like consuming to making something for others to consume, you know? And it's really great because then you're always thinking with like the eyes of faith and like what a difference that makes because like that's how it really should be, you know? We should always be thinking like, how can I be a saint? What can I do to help bring others to Christ? What do people want to see? Not always thinking that, you know, but the previous two. And so I'm really grateful that God's done all this. I never thought I'd be making a movie. I always want to be an actor, but and acting is really hard. So I'm definitely not that good of an actor, but hopefully the editors make me look like I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so cool. And uh, I think that at the end of the day, like, what do I want? I want people to give their life to Christ and to order their life in a way that shows that they would love Christ, right? Because how many Christians and Catholics, of course, Catholics are Christians. They were the first Christians. How many Christians do we know out there that are like, oh yeah, I'm Christian, but they're like contracepting and like lie and curse all the time and like are like all of this stuff. It's like, okay, like what does that even mean? You know, if this can really like get to people's hearts and allow them to give Christ everything, because that's at the end of the day, like he wants our heart. We see that all throughout the scripture, but what does that actually mean? He wants like us to give ourselves to him so that he can work through us. We get out of the way and he does what he does best.
Yeah.
And that's really what I hope that this channel has done and will continue to do. I don't know how much longer I'll be doing this because it's a lot of work. Of course, you know, you have a YouTube channel, but God, I'm sure will keep providing. And yeah, I'm just happy to continue like doing, it's literally like day by day, like until this movie's done, like it's just crazy. So I'd appreciate any prayers. And if you want to support us, you still can. It's the website is eucharisticmiraclesmovie.com. And there's like a blog showing like all the people we've interviewed and things like that. So it's really great.
I'll put all the relevant links in as well. I'll just say though, you're not giving yourself any credit because you're just saying it's pure Holy Spirit, but it's because you said yes, if you know what I mean. You know, you didn't have to say yes effectively to that calling in a way. So that's where the credit lies type thing. But I totally get what you mean in terms of it's just kind of like letting go and letting God guide you. It's kind of crazy. And then all these amazing things happen.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's so funny because like, I think that, I think it's so interesting. Like how in the world could like two guys make a movie that might change the world? Like we couldn't. How could like we get in touch with Carlo Acutis and every single speaker we've asked, except for like two have said yes. And on our international trip, they said yes to even the date we asked them. And like for all these things to work out so perfectly, it was just like so much God. And I think that really like, it's always obviously like humility is recognizing like what you're doing, you know, like to be like humility isn't like, oh, I'm just so horrible, you know. Humility is honestly recognizing your gifts.
Humility in action, basically,
yeah,
as opposed to in words. Yeah,
exactly. So you see like what God is doing, and it really just like blows your mind even more because you're like, oh wow, if I really like get out of the way and like humble myself and take up my cross, like look at what He can do, you know. And I'm just like moving, but He's like the one that's guiding. So there's so many stuff like I can't tell you because like it would totally spoil the movie. But when you see it, oh my gosh, you're gonna be like, holy crap. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, I know, right? That's what I thought when I was filming. So
well, on that exciting note, to leave it as a cliffhanger, let's say, we'll wrap it up there. Ray Grijalba, thanks so much for taking the time, and yeah, can't wait to see the movie.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So thanks so much for having me on, and we'll have to get together soon.
Absolutely. God bless, Ray. Cheers.
All right, cheers.